So listen, it is 6 a.m. I wish I could tell you this was early for me. I have three boys under the age of 8. I'm up. I'm up. I'm up. My days start. I don't even know if I have a regular routine anymore, which is also really fun for me, being here in my home office, which is actually my garage. You guys probably can't see this because I got blur on with my team's video, but it's really it's an interesting scenario to be working at home now, as is the new norm, and I work out of my garage. I was telling a friend this a couple weeks ago. I used to have my own office, and it was great. Like, we bought this house with extra space. I used to have an office with a plant and a coffee maker in it, and a little water bottle dispenser. Had a little mini fridge in there for cold beverages. And then we had the first stowaway that still lives in my house, and so that kind of turned into a little bit of a nursery slash gym. Then less of an office, but I could still do work there from time to time. And then when the second varmint came, I got pushed into the family room, which, obviously when you have a family, working out of the family room is not ideal. When the third one came, I got pushed all the way to the garage. And so I work out here. I've got my own little custom bar here. I've got a TV. I've got my treadmill here, and I've got my router set up. So hopefully the connection holds and the video works out just fine. I want to thank everybody for making the effort to do this. This is really an interesting time to do this sort of a situation. We're blessed. We work for Microsoft. Obviously, we have a lot of technology. So working from home and working virtually and doing these sorts of meetings over video and voice isn't actually that unusual for us, which is, I think, a good thing for us. The second thing I would say is, gosh, Ro and I were talking. Ro, obviously, our CEO over here at Synergy, we were talking, and I think it was probably Tuesday of last week, where we were still planning on doing this event in person. Things in King County, also known where I'm at in Seattle as the epicenter of some of the local coronavirus contact, were it was here, but it wasn't necessarily as widespread, or I don't think the broad panic had set in yet about what do we need to do to make sure that we limit the spread of this virus. And so, Ro and I had an exchange on Tuesday last week that was kind of like, hey, we're still to go for this. I was planning on making a trip out to Raleigh and Tuskegee, Alabama, and from Tuesday, I guess, what was that afternoon, Ro, to then Thursday morning, 36 hours later, where everything is sort of completely shut down. Our school shut down. Raleigh school district started to shut down. Infrastructure around the country started to shut down. And that's how quickly, the pace of change can happen now. And we're blessed for that, right? Number one, we have access to information at a pace that's much different than it historically has been. And I'll take some time to walk through some of those examples. But then number two, again, we have technology to help facilitate a conversation like this, right? And so, as Ro mentioned, I'm on video. I'm sitting here in a garage by myself with a space heater. um, Having this conversation. We'll stop for questions, but what I'll do is I'll probably talk for about 40, 45 minutes, and then we'll leave some time at the end for question and answer. And I just want to also thank, there's several members of my team here on the call. Thank you for participating and helping out a great partner like Synergy. Synergy is a very, very deep partner of ours on the Modern Workplace stack. We've got some breakouts throughout the day that will flash the schedule for you here at the end of my session, so you know which breakout to attend and where. And again, let's just have a good time with this. It'll be the first of this for many of you, and hopefully you can lean on us for a little bit of experience on how this works. So with that, let me generally just start by addressing the COVID-19. This is unprecedented times, and we thought about how do things change with something when the coronavirus comes out. How does it change? How does it alter? How do we think about our day-to-day existence? And this is, by the way, not the first crisis I've seen, for better or worse. Most of you, many of you, like me, were available when we had the great recession there earlier. When the stock market crashed and we had the home default swaps and the economy was in the tank, that was an issue. I was in New York City when 9/11 hit. I was bunkered up behind a bar in a coffee shop 3 blocks away from ground zero there, and so that was uncomfortable. That was uncomfortable, and that was hard to experience and be a part of. So unprecedented things happen, and I think about my time 20 years ago in New York versus now, and how technology is able to illuminate or support a lot of these scenarios, that we can get through this. Like, we will power through this. I've got 3 young boys that are here, and have been being quote unquote homeschooled for over a week now. And I've realized a couple things. Number one, children are resilient, you know, unbelievably resilient, and they're confused and they're looking around like, what is this disease and how does it impact my day to day, and why don't I get to go to school and see my friends, and what do you mean baseball season is no longer going to happen? And there's all kinds of questions that you get to have real conversations with your children about. Number two, there's so much technology and content out there. My wife and I can be thoughtful about planning their day. We can be thoughtful about when I have to take a conference call versus when I need to step out then and handle a math session of fractions, or when I need to make lunch, or when we need a brain break and I get to go to the park for 30 minutes, right? Where me and the boys get to go and get outside. Number three, I paid a lot to have this garage soundproofed as I was pushed out to it. And I realized now it's not soundproof. It's not. It's not soundproof. So I dug for about 2.5 hours yesterday for the receipt for my general contractor. Couldn't find it. I'll make that a process today. But in these unprecedented times, and when we're dealing with something as significant as this virus, we have to think about how we can leverage technology. And again, I feel blessed that we work for a company like Microsoft, where we have technology at our fingertips. We have an opportunity to leverage infrastructure and technology in a way that never has had to be duplicated at this scale in the past. And I think about it in sort of these sort of situations. And Becky's my business manager on the call, and her and I go round and round about opportunities in these times. Yeah, is it hard? Of course. Do I wish we had more Purell? Definitely. I feel for the hospitals, the nurses that are running short on these critical supplies like toilet paper and masks. And we as a community all need to step up and help. And at Microsoft, we're doing that in a variety of ways. Number one, we're helping with detection. The speed of which we can take sampling now and get it through testing approval process to help make sure that we can identify pockets of where this virus exists, how to limit its spread, and we can get test results back faster now than we ever have before, is gigantic. We have a partner that we recently worked with, an IP partner, that created a solution that actually takes blood work into a mobile phone, and will give you a detection within 3 minutes of over 300 different types of flu strains, as just one example. Leveraging technology to detect this virus and other viruses, and then enabling that speed, that velocity to actual treatment, is a really important factor to help stem the flow of this virus. The second thing, treatment. We can now use technology to run A/B testing everywhere in the world, which we never had access to before. Infrastructure was always a gating factor to being able to treat people in different positions, different scenarios, whether you're away from a hospital or not. Now there's enough of gateways of information that we can actually send information and treatment and supplies and best practices to people all over the world, as well as get them access to actual medical care. I'm watching a show right now on Netflix called Pandemic, which randomly just came out, of course, the beginning of January, and it talks about widespread flu, symptoms and how to curb that. And it's fascinating to think about, swine flu and SARS. And when these scenarios came out, we didn't have a tenth of the technology now on how we disseminate information and how we can get people in rural environments into hospitals to help treat them. You can leverage technology now to do this a lot more efficiently. And you can do a lot of the telemedicine work, which has never been done before on this scale. You see that happening right now with companies like Teladoc and even Synergy, as an example, leveraging platforms to disseminate information to a greater audience at much scale. It's really impactful to see technology being used that way. Obviously, analytics and modeling. I don't know if anybody has seen the COVID-19 John Hopkins live data map view, built on Power BI. I don't know if anybody has seen that recently, but I refresh it on a regular basis, and I don't know what I'm hoping for. Don't know. I don't know if I'm looking for the numbers to increase greatly, decrease greatly. Um, it's fascinating to think about developing a solution or a model where we can effectively predict where the next great spread of something like this will occur. And we've done the modeling now, and we know that based on where people have to interact and they're not enabled to social distancing, how quickly that spread can then lead to an entire audience and population. And like I said, just a week ago, Ro and I were talking about still doing the event in person. And the way that lawmakers and concerned citizens and just responsible human beings looked at the data and were able to progress through our modeling scenarios using Microsoft technology to see that, oh my goodness, like this could spread enormously. And it went to, we're canceling sports, we're canceling these large public venues, to now on Monday here in Seattle, we closed all bars and restaurants to in-person activities and focused only on takeout. That dissemination of information is all done through analytics and modeling on the data that we have, which then leads me to pillar number 4, which is around, this is the heart of digital transformation. How do we take information that historically was slow to progress, do anything with, transact, make decisions based on, and how do we accelerate that cycle? How do we capture information? And all, by the way, databases are the same. All data management scenarios are the same. We take information, we ingest information, we collect it, we ingest it, we standardize it, we process it, we store it, and then we make decisions based on it. The speed and velocity and then the scale of that data that we can now leverage powers this transformational moment in how we use data and technology to make the world a better place. Our mission statement at Microsoft is about enabling every person and organization to achieve more. We're doing that right now in these unprecedented times, in these times of crises, where we're able to see these opportunities now in the marketplace. I feel terrible, like I said, about all these industries that will forever be impacted. Airlines. I think about the retail business. I think about these people that have to work full-time jobs and they don't have customers coming in. I think about slow transportation, logistics operations. I think about all the workers at restaurants, and some of these sporting venues that no longer have activity. All these people that have, I mean, they postponed the Kentucky Derby, right? With hundreds of thousands of people anticipated to flock into that geographic location once a year, to support a sporting event. All those businesses that thrive on that economic opportunity no longer can thrive this spring. So there's a lot of there's a lot of issues there, right, with our economy being disrupted. But there's also a time for opportunity. And how do we do things virtually? And how do companies that support telemedicine or analytics modeling scenarios or information aggregation or homeschool systems? Think about the amount of curriculum that's now being pushed and processed online. Think about a platform like YouTube that people are now able to do lesson plans with and actually do live teaching, record it, and then stream it out to billions of people around the world. So in these times of strife and stress and economic turmoil, there's also gigantic opportunity to disrupt and change how your operating model works. And how do you recession-proof your business? How do you virus-proof your operating model? That's where technology can really help enable you. And really, at the end of the day, connecting with people and driving a productive experience both for your employees as well as your customers and your partners is something that Microsoft has at its core, and we want to help you do that. Synergy came up with this idea to do this secure, transform, productivity workshop. And we said, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. We see that happening all over the world. This was several months ago. Think about the power of working at home now and leveraging technology to connect other people, leveraging technology to do conference calls with your customers, to do these live video streams. where you can directly connect. And we want Microsoft and Synergy to be a part of your plan. We don't want you to see this tragedy as only a limitation and as something to be scared of in your business operating model. We want you to see it as an opportunity to thrive, an opportunity to connect your teams in a new way, an opportunity to drive productivity that you've never driven before. And so I wanted to make sure I spent some time talking about, I get it. This is weird. This is weird. This is weird. I put pants on today. This is weird when we're working at home and we're having these conversations. But it's also an opportunity, right, to leverage technology to its fullest extent, and for you to take a leadership role in your community, in your industry, for your employees, for your partners and your customers, to really drive a new way of working that is more comfortable, is more productive. And we found a way to do that at Microsoft and with Synergy. And I hope you take advantage of the opportunity and the that Synergy has in market to make it the same for your organization and frankly, for your family as well. So with that, I just want to quickly, introduce, the concept of how we think about where your workplace exists, right? With that, the virus as our backdrop. Work was always where you kind of sat in front of a PC. If you had an information worker job. Remember, 30 years ago, the majority of Americans didn't have information worker jobs, right? I grew up in a mill town. My father was a military man who then went off and worked at a mill. First, it was a paper mill, and then turned into a plastic mill. And a computer to him is still a little bit of a foreign concept. He doesn't really get it. Staring at a screen for that long during the day is a strange concept to him. And so when we think about people doing work in front of a machine or in front of a computer, work used to only exist, and your actual workplace was where your computer was. You didn't get work done unless you were sitting there in front of your PC that sat under your desk with one monitor. I remember early sketches of Saturday Night Live as an example, where they talked about the early portable computers where people would just take their monitors and walk out the door with them. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case anymore. The workspace now is wherever you are connected to infrastructure. I actually spend more time on my mobile phone these days than I do in front of my laptop or in front of a screen. I have a practice with me and my team where when I'm having a conversation, I really like to be present. I don't like to have my email up or screens up in front of me. I believe that's a purposeful thing that as a leader, I need to set the tone of I'm engaged in this conversation. So I actually do a lot more email on my phone as I'm walking in between meetings than I do sitting down at my computer in front of my desk and doing work. I have 7 different computers. I was just counting last week. And I don't actually know why. I've got a Surface Book here that I use sometimes when I travel. I've got a Surface Go device, which I really enjoy. And this is actually, I took the keyboard off. I enjoy that quite a bit, which is where I do a lot of training as well, or perhaps, take on airplanes with me when I'm traveling. I have a lot of different computers. It used to be that my computer was where my files were stored. So can I imagine bouncing between one device to another? That would have been quite difficult for me to do back in the day because my content was on one device. It was on a hard drive here, or I had pictures on my phone that was only accessible to my phone. Because of the power of the cloud and how I think about connecting to my content, I save everything in OneDrive. I save everything in OneDrive. And so pictures of my family or lesson plans for my kids or my wife's to-do list, right, which she calls the Monday mornings. All those things for me are all stored in the cloud, and I can access it from any connected device I can possibly. This presentation that we're streaming right now, I actually edited last night on a different computer, and I just pulled it up now on my office computer here in my lovely non-soundproof garage to present to you this morning. That power of being able to access content from wherever I am and have it be my content, my fidelity, and do that in a secure format shows the power of the connected infrastructure that we have. And now I can do that anywhere I am. I can do that at a kiosk at a hotel. I can do that at on my wife's computer. I can do that in an office computer that doesn't necessarily belong to me. I can log into my Office 365 account and have access to everything. And I think that shows, again, the power of extending content and technology infrastructure to wherever we can. And just to highlight, we've now got this virtual workspace concept, and so we are ready for something that happens today, where you've got countries completely closing their borders, and people. I mean, I have a person who I'm really close to who cannot get back from Europe. A nice little French vacation turned into a sequestered experience for them, and they'll be there for now probably a couple other months. Now we've got this, you can't gather or connect with anybody else. There was an earthquake yesterday in Salt Lake City, and I think it was a 5.7 on the Richter scale, and then there were some aftershocks. And really the fear at that stage is no longer, can people get up and get to their offices? It's not the fear anymore. It's, where is our infrastructure grid? If we lost power, electricity, the internet, that is the shocking moment, right? That will really distress the environment. No longer do roads being open matter. No longer do self-isolation matter when you have this workspace now concept of being able to access your work from really wherever you are at any point in time. So with that, I want to pause real quick and see if there's any questions I can address about opportunity now in the economic situation that we're in with this virus and this work from home concept, or talk about any questions you may have about a digital or extended workspace.
So, David, I do have a question, and a couple of customers had asked me about this. Any feedback from Microsoft around concerns around internet infrastructure? I mean, we've got every college student in the country now working from home. My daughter's taking online classes today. Every elementary school student, every professional worker. Are you guys getting any feedback that there are issues with the underlying internet infrastructure?
No. No, and I say that with 100% confidence with how we've extended data centers, right? I mean, Microsoft has over 50 data centers around the world. Honestly, we're not worried about the New York Cities, the Seattles, the Miami, Floridas of the world. We're worried about Uganda and about the riverside and countryside in Western Russia. And even in that extension, we have LTE and now cellular connectivity. We actually recently launched a new technology called Azure Edge. It used to be, if you were like, think about your home situation setup. You've got a modem and you might have a wireless router that you're connecting multiple devices to. Azure Edge allows us to say, hey, if you're right next to a data center and you're close to really strong, thick pipe that runs across the Atlantic, as an example, then you're going to have great connectivity and you're going to have speeds to data that you haven't had before. Now we've got something called Azure Edge, which is an extension of our Azure data centers through our wireless carriers. And we've got 5 major agreements set up, one with AT&T as an example, where we now extend Azure technology, storage, compute, access to virtual machines through cellular networks, 3G all the way to 5G. And that essentially moves the router closer to your PC wherever you are. And I'd love to say, yeah, it works that way in Los Angeles and Dallas and Atlanta, but that's it. But it actually touches over 4 billion people because of the extension of what cellular network infrastructure has looked like. And so when I think about Microsoft and our investment in infrastructure and data centers specifically, it's not just the brick and mortar buildings that we have invested in. We've laid over 300 million miles of pipe and cell towers across the world to make sure that people stay connected. Again, our livelihood is tied to work anywhere. And our customers need to be able to access their Microsoft infrastructure anywhere. And that's one of the things you sign up for when you move to the cloud, is that I believe that this service provider, Microsoft, actually has a more stable, secure, scalable infrastructure than I can manage locally in my data center. And so I say that with 100% confidence. We do not feel a bump in our traffic or capacity issues when it comes to a time like this where you see more and more bandwidth. I bought a new router because my kids are doing Go Noodle for an hour a day and streaming National Geographic and Sesame Street on the TV next door on the Roku device. And so I bought a new router to say, well, maybe this will help with my home PC network. But again, we're blessed in first world countries to have good infrastructure like this, particularly in rural environments as well. And so, yeah, we haven't seen a hiccup at all.
That's good. I think that'll ease a lot of concerns for customers because they're all transitioning to exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah, they are, and your customers are too, right? It was an interesting thing. We had a quote unquote Teams outage in Europe. I heard about a couple of days ago that started circulating, and essentially what happened is there was a person who was switching a data center backup scenario, and these are all still human interacted devices. And essentially, I won't bore you with the details, but the person who was switching a network node apparently left one open and then opened up another one. And if you're trying to funnel, traffic through a specific gateway, sometimes it gets confused. Do I go left or do I go right? And so it wasn't that Teams was out; it was that it was trying to get to a left gateway if you left the Teams infrastructure open, and it was then going to the right. Simple fix: you close it and reopen it. And so, but that to a lot of customers is like, oh no, the internet is down, right? And we deal with that now than we used to deal with 20 years ago. My mother-in-law still asks me to fix her printer. I can't remember the last time I printed something, to be honest with you, let alone why I would have domain expertise in fixing a printer. Nowadays, it's, oh gosh, my machine is spinning, the internet must be down, or Microsoft is down. Trust me, the infrastructure doesn't work that way. We back up data multiple times in multiple worldwide geographic locations, and we always have a way of packet organizing so that you get the most efficient, optimized pipe to your information when it's in the cloud. All right. Well, let me just kind of introduce a couple concepts here to set the tone for the day and this virtual summit itself. I get asked this question a lot. Microsoft, you guys are a Windows company, and that's true. We sell that. That's true. We are also an infrastructure company because we have things like Windows Server. We're a database company with SQL Server. We are an Office company, right? We sell Office, and a lot of people use Excel and Exchange. But really, at the end, we're also used to be a phone company and a portable music player. Shout out to all of those who bought a Zune and had the marketplace subscription. Thank you for that. I still have my Zune. It has songs on it from literally 12 years ago that I can't. I mean, what am I going to do now? I can't really find MP3. So I still have my playlist from 12 years ago when I was really hip and cool. So I still listen to that from time to time. But we really are, we don't want to be a product company. We want to be a services company. And that's part of what this Office experience is all about, is how do you actually run a set of services and then extend those services to different people and organizations and touch points and landing points around the world. And so part of that is the suite of offerings we have that we call Modern Workplace. And there's several pieces of Modern Workplace. One is Office 365, right? Your personal computing experience on Word and Excel and all of the products associated with Office. We talked about SharePoint and OneDrive before. But it also includes your Windows, your actual desktop that you're actually accessing it through. Did you know that all terminals in airports and teller bank machines are all run off of a Windows operating system for the most part? An incredible technology that we do called Windows Embedded, the most popular operating system around the world. We also have Surface, which is not just a device or a Surface Go like I talked about earlier, but is also a Surface Hub that we now use as live whiteboards. I actually have a Surface Hub that functions as my TV to a certain extent that I don't have cable out to, but that I can go out and turn into a whiteboard when I need to in my office here. And then we obviously have this concept of enterprise mobility. We were joking internally, Synergy are experts at the technology platform and how to make sure that you as end customers or partners are more productive using the technology. But it's always still a little bit surprising to us internally when we went to join, like we're joining a Teams broadcast and a Teams meeting infrastructure that's run by Synergy, not by Microsoft. That is a Synergy deployment and implementation. And they have two-factor authentication, which I love. We do that here internally. It's a way to make sure that we maintain security and you can access content across multiple devices. That means I have to log in so I can click something, but then I also have to validate my identity through another mechanism, whether it's a text to my phone or an authentication method through a different email address. And it's great to see companies using two-factor authentication. I'm always confused when I'm entering in credit card information, and yet it's not asking for multiple ways of authenticating myself. That's a security red flag, by the way. And so Microsoft technology makes that easy, but you have to work with a partner like Synergy on how you implement that and what the business rules, change management rules, how you teach people about it can make that happen. So we were laughing internally about, oh, it's so great to see Synergy do that, because there's still so many companies out there that have access to their infrastructure or their products, and they don't do two-factor authentication, which is a little bit strange. So this is our modern workplace stack, and that doesn't mean you have to have all four of these to have a quote unquote modern workplace. It means that there are pockets of technology that we couple together that will optimize your experience. You can use the Surface and the Surface alone and be more productive than you were yesterday. When you use the Surface plus Office 365, you're even more productive. When you slap on that security layer of enterprise mobility and multi-factor authentication and having identity and policy management across your stack, you're even more productive. And so we like these all together as a modern workplace strategy, but that doesn't mean that on Monday you don't have any of them and on Tuesday you do. You have to work through a very thoughtful plan with a company like Synergy to sit down, think about your productivity, collaboration goals, think about how to drive higher shareholder value and a deeper connection with your customers and partners, and then draw out a very logical strategic plan on how you want to adopt and leverage different technologies to enable that vision. That is the one thing that Synergy does better than anybody else in the world. Sit down, architect a solution for you that will enable your business needs. And it's not at all for, let's do it on Tuesday. It's a roadmap to success with milestones and activities against that will help you both technology implementation wise, as well as change management, both for your internal employees as well as your customers and partners. There's several pieces to this stack called Microsoft 365. I think we're going to stick with this branding for a while. And, originally we were going to have several breakouts. Today we're going to focus on two. I've got domain experts on my team talking about security and then obviously collaboration. But there's also this compliance score that we have. How compliant are you with how you use your data and how we think about, international laws or local laws with data retention, capture, things of that nature. There's privacy. We have a gigantic data center. There was a video I was going to show here during my live keynote around what we call red team and blue team, that are a bunch of dorks, frankly, that go out and try and break internet protocols and security scenarios through Microsoft's infrastructure left and right. And they kind of develop challenges together to try and break the other team. Which is fascinating. So that scope of privacy and how we think about your data is your data, and why Microsoft respects that, and why your data is private and secure in our stack is a key component of Microsoft 365. There's other things around content. I laugh all the time about content because now that I'm old, and I experience is one way I talk about it, but it's straight up bitterness. When I was a kid growing up on a farm, we didn't have the internet. You know what I mean? So I learned about things because my dad told me about them. So I learned about everything there was in the world because my mom and dad had opinions. So there was never like external validation or independent third-party research to my old man's opinions, right? And in fact, I remember as a kid doing book reports, right? Like we all had to do. And remember out on the farm, there used to be people, this is a true story, I'm not making this up. There was people that went door to door and sold encyclopedias. Do you remember this? And the way that they sold them to you was they gave you one for free. That was always the hook. Well, okay, come out, here's the Britannica, they'll give you this book. We'll come back and check on you once you've had an experience with this if you're not ready to buy the other 25 chapters, because it was by letters, A. So we got the A book, and then they said we'll come back and check on you since you're not ready to commit today to the purchase. So we'll come back and sell you the other 25 some other time. Well, I lived out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody came back. No, they didn't come back to my street to say, hey, here's the option on B, C, and D. So every paper I wrote in like middle school, I mean, literally started with an A. I can tell you about the Andes Mountains, about alligators. I know all about Appalachian State. You ask me, I'll tell you. Arkansas was my favorite state growing up, not because I'd ever been there, because I'm a huge Razorback fan. It's because the only states I knew about were Alabama, Arkansas, Alaska. So, I mean, that's how I had access to content, was through a traveling salesperson whose name was Sal. For some reason, I remember that. His name was Sal, and he sold me the A book and the encyclopedia. And so, just thinking about how we extend content across, the network and infrastructure, Microsoft 365 holds that. Workflow. I'll just say one thing about workflow: the ability to transition seamlessly from one experience to another and leveraging analytics through that workflow. We've got a little box down there in the corner called Knowledge. We just released a beta product called Cortex. Cortex is amazing. It sees how I do my schedule. I was joking earlier about how my wife and I have to be a little bit flexible about, I know I have to break in my calendar here for commute time or dropping my kids off at school, or now I'm in charge of lunches or the brain break, or I'm doing math with Parker at 2 o'clock. My schedule now in Office 365 jumps out at me because it knows I block that time. I did it once and twice. All of a sudden, you do it one time, it's a thing. You do it twice, it's a pattern. The power of really unleashing the full Microsoft 365 is now predictive analytics and workflow in through my system actually blocks my calendar at 2 p.m. so I can go out and do math with Parker. It does that without me commanding it. It asks my opinion, of course, if I want to do that. But leveraging that workflow and those analytics to sense patterns in how I work, how I want to work, when I have a follow up. Like in Office 365 today, when I send an email and I say, see the attached, how many times have we done that where we forgot to attach a document? Now that gets flagged. It looks like you meant to attach something, David. Did you forget it? I did, right? Now every day I wake up to a set of reminders, one list from my wife, another one from Office 365 on, here's the things you said you were going to follow up on yesterday. Do you have time carved out to go solve that? That connected workflow between devices and experiences is really important, and again shows the power of Microsoft 365. And so the two concepts we're going to talk today are about, first, collaboration. Teamwork. How do you connect with other people? We're showing that live right now. How do we connect with people within teams, make it a personal experience wherever you are in the world with whatever you want to present? Number two being, how do I conduct effective meetings, both in person and virtually? You see they have a hub up here that they're able to draw on, live markup. That's one example of the stack. But also, just how do we do effective meetings where people in person feel included? They feel welcomed. They feel they have a voice, where they can do that in person or on virtual. Business intelligence across that collaboration. How do we get more actual impactful engagement through our tools, is by leveraging some of these analytics and business intelligence, right? And then this fluidity between devices, experiences, roles, and how do I switch between one application to another and it remembers me. It remembers me, it remembers my content, is very, very important. And so that's a huge opportunity to transform our workplace into a modern scenario by leveraging the power of Teams, leveraging the power of Microsoft 365. We get this question all the time. I just talked about how to make sure that we're very much more productive in teaming scenarios and meeting scenarios, and how do we connect with customers and partners at a deeper level, and we have historical context and business intelligence tied into that. But how do I balance that with security? If you're an IT pro out here, are you concerned more with productivity, or are you concerned more with security? And that's a question we always have to ask. If you're a CISO, oftentimes it's security. If you're an IT man, if you're an IT worker, you kind of actually care more times about productivity. If you're a knowledge worker, I want to be more productive with my tools, have better access to information. I want my job to be more efficient so I can spend more time doing the things I really need to do to drive, the company value, the shareholder value, to drive a better customer experience. So what's the trade-off there? And I think the balance that we try and strive here across Microsoft is it actually doesn't have to be a trade-off. And that's one of the benefits of the cloud. Whether you're on premise or you're balancing workloads into the cloud, this true hybrid environment that can be powered by Microsoft enables you to have productivity while being secure. And I know it's hard. If you were a seasoned CIO, or you've been running your own data center for 20 years, trust me, you know more than I do about running data centers. I believe you. I'll co-sign on that. I believe you. But if you think you spend more in your security model than a company like Microsoft, right, that receives over 300 billion hits on our network or threats of attack on our infrastructure every single day, and hasn't had one single data breach yet, hasn't had one single scenario where we've leaked customer information, then I need to ask you to go to work tomorrow with an open mind, that we may know a little bit about security and about how to drive that productivity conversation through a secure infrastructure. And Office 365 enables that for you. Office 365 gives you that ability to have on-premise infrastructure and a hybrid compute experience, while also balancing workload in the cloud and having access to your content wherever you are, and also knowing that that content is secure, the infrastructure is secure, your data, your experience is yours, it's secure, it's private, it's compliant, and more importantly, your customers and your partners' data and their experiences with you is secure through that platform. There's so many different endpoints now to capture customer data. Why would you try and manage that security model on your own as opposed to turn it over to an infrastructure provider like Microsoft, who can help make sure that we give you that comfort and make sure that you know we take our security seriously? And so the second half of that coin is, we know about productivity and teaming and new ways of working. I already told you about that. Now, how do we actually think about security? And we do it through a couple different things. One thing that I think is a core differentiator for Microsoft is our identity and access management. Active Directory and how we manage identity across an infrastructure, both for your own employees as well as for your customers and partners, and how they interact with your system, is really, really important. That policy management, access management to your content, we have a best in world infrastructure and process for that. How do we proactively identify threats and potential vulnerabilities in infrastructure and people trying to break and breach your network? So we've got this really in-depth level of threat protection. How do we keep your data and your customers' data private, secure? That's all about data protection, information protection. And then as you balance between doing things on premises in an on-premises world versus doing more and more in the cloud, how do we manage that security model between the two? Not only the pipe of data and information between those two, but also the environments themselves. And so that intelligent security is the second piece of what I think makes our modern workplace story really pop. So with that, I've talked for a lot. I wanted just to quickly call out a couple of things. One, you're going to learn some awesome content today. And whether or not you're deep in Microsoft, you're a Microsoft lover, you've never been given the Kool-Aid of what Microsoft can offer before, I think you're going to learn something today. And I think you're going to get some access to information or some new ways of thinking that's worth just taking back, taking a break, doing a brain break of your own, walk outside, right? And just go think about, am I protecting my customers' data? Do I work as efficiently as I can, right? So that I can spend more time doing new activities? Am I bottled down in paperwork and access to tools? And I could be doing something more impactful for myself, for my family, for my customers, for my bosses, for my direct reports. And then I want you to think about that. And I hope that just that stimulates thought for you. And I hope that that stimulates what you can possibly do with an evaluation of Microsoft's modern workplace technology stack. And then the second thing I want you to think through is, you don't have to do this journey on your own. We're doing this partnership. I'm dialing in from a non-soundproof garage at 6 a.m. my time because I believe in synergy as a company, as a partner that can promote your best interest in mind. Listen, I'll be honest with you. We don't pay Synergy a ton of money to deploy workloads. They do this for you, not because we're making them rich. They do this because they know there's obviously opportunity in the marketplace to help you discover different technologies that can help make you more productive. They want to make sure you have the seamless experience with technology and how to apply technology to be more productive. Then they want to help make sure that you reap the benefits of any of the investments that you make, hopefully on our stack, right? Because we think we're best in class and we've got the end-to-end infrastructure to support all the needs that you need. But you got to do it at your pace with a thoughtful strategic plan. And so Synergy Technical is that preferred partner for me as the CTO here at Microsoft US, to make sure that you understand that we're not just trying to sell you something and good luck. We want you to think about what technology is best for your business processes, for your customer challenges. What's the strategic, thoughtful plan of how to roll out and implement that technology to really make sure that you can take full advantage of the stack? And so really think about technologies that can make your life easier, and then think about what that thoughtful strategic plan of attack is on how you want to assess these technologies and then implement them over time. And I think the Synergy Technical and Microsoft experience will help shore that up for you today. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna pause. I've got about 10 minutes left before I have to run to breakfast duty. Are there any sort of questions or discussion points I can leave you with before Ro, I turn it back over to you to set the agenda for the day?
Ro, you're on mute.
Off now. I think I'm good now. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
All right. So we had a question from York Davis at Indivier, and he may or may not be having audio issues now. York, are you there?
I can hear you fine. Thanks, Ro. I turned my video off just to work through this, make sure audio works well. Hi, David. York Davis with Indivier. We're an addiction-based pharmaceutical company. So you caught my attention earlier with the blood test.
Yeah.
And addiction's a hot topic right now. So I'd love to catch up later with you. But Michael Helfrich, who's on this call with me, and I were talking yesterday with one of our users about, we're no longer doing these joint meetings where we got some people in a room and some people remote, a one-off dial-in. Everybody's remote. And they're wanting to simulate a workshop type environment where, in a workshop you have a topic, and then there's some side and breakouts and small conversations that happen in a room, and you're kind of listening to what others are saying as you're having your own conversation. Any thoughts on how that dynamic changes and how we bring those users on the journey to transition to this online way of working for the foreseeable future?
Yeah,
and
it's
Michael,
really interesting.
Michael, if you want to add anything to it, feel free.
No, I think you've nailed it. So David, hi, I'm Michael Helfrich with Indivier. And just to give you a sense of where this individual was at, I had set up a Teams call with her, but she dialed in from her phone. And it just gives us a sense. I mean, here we all are on this meeting, some of us turning on video, some of us, where we're at in terms of our ability to leverage this technology and the journey we have to take. And actually, David, at this point, we have to take our customers on a very rapid journey over the next couple of weeks to be as productive as possible. So any tips you can give us, we're just greatly appreciative.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Number one, I've realized in this experience with Modern Workplace and being so deep in this space. I used to be our Modern Workplace director here across the U.S. Moons ago. That not everybody has Microsoft technology. I think about this with my school district right now, where my teacher for our kindergartner is sending out content and lesson plans, and then she has quote unquote office hours, and she's got a dial-in meeting ish, and it's a mix between Google Hangouts. I think was the first try. That didn't work. Then they went to I want to say it was Zoom for the next one. And then finally, it's like, listen, you're an educator, you get free access to Teams. Let's just get a Teams link out there that people can just click the link. They don't have to download a WebEx client. They don't have to download some other client. They just click into the link and it connects to their cell phone, right, to an infrastructure. And sometimes you can pay attention then, but when everybody's in the same platform, it's so much easier. And Teams is an open infrastructure that you don't have to, you can have a link and you can click it and get access to that meeting broadcast wherever you are to pay attention to. The second thing, so standardizing on something that's as powerful as Teams, I think, is number one, the key. Number two, even when you can't do that, I'll give you the example that happened here internally for us at Microsoft. We had Becky will keep me honest. We had a citywide meeting, essentially a community meeting, right, in our major hubs of cities, and this was scheduled from maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So if you think about US, we've got a lot of US based employees. We've got some in Bellevue, Seattle area. We've got some in LA. You've got some in Chicago. And every city held their own meeting. But there was kind of one central meeting that everybody got kind of the instructions at. Then you went to your city meeting, okay? And then you went to your breakout, red team, blue team, green team, yellow team, purple team breakout on addition to that. So, and it's a little bit how we're going to do the workshops sessions today, where we're going to have separate meeting environments where we have one big group meeting together and everybody gets information. And with Teams, you can broadcast that content and that information. And then you can actually have a snapshot or a whiteboard always up on that meeting that you can take notes on, right? Or what we did in this session was we had one Word document that everybody was editing. Think about that. Thousands of people editing one Word document online because of collaboration and live edit capabilities. Then you broke off into your city room. So then you had this open window over here, and then you clicked another link to join phone, put this call on hold, and now you join up to this separate room. And then you had a workshop session that was like 10 minutes, go brainstorm ideas to think about this, your green team room. And so you put that call on hold and joined a third call. I did that all from the same PC. I actually moved it to my mobile over part of the time where I was responsible for making lunch. So I actually moved it to my mobile and was able to balance through 3 different calls, 3 different contents, one whiteboard that I'm looking at, one Word document that I'm editing on my phone, and then one that I'm just actually contributing and brainstorming on and driving that virtually. And actually worked really, I thought, worked really well virtually, how we connected. And I think that that's the power of showing the technology. Not everybody's going to use every piece of modern workplace or the team stack. The more we can get them comfortable with clicking the button to join a call, that's step 1. Click the button. I don't have to punch in a 1-800 and then pound and then hit this number. Click the button.
Right.
Okay? Click the button from your mobile phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The more that we can just enable the first simple thing that makes it easier for them is the step first. And then you get the power of the platform other than that. I will tell you as well, one side story on this. One thing that we struggle with, so a vulnerable moment here on our side. We struggle where there's 9 people in the room having a meeting and there's 1 person virtual. Okay.
Yes.
Like that's hard. Like when you're looking around, I mean, there's one thing about reading body language and, you know, my supervisor giving me this look that he's disappointed with me, you know, that disappointed dad look that my boss gives me sometimes. That's one thing when you're picking up body language or talking over each other in the room, right? Trying to get a word in edgewise when you're on the phone or you're on video or you're dialing in from your phone. Like I don't even see video. I'm dialing into a prompt on my cell phone or my landline is very, very challenging. And so at Microsoft, one thing that we really have tried to do a lot better job of in my leadership team meetings is to have these moments, this thoughtfulness of let's pause. Any feedback from the phone? You know what I mean? Like, and is that, do we do that every 20 minutes? Do you do it every 30 minutes? Do you do that every hour? Do you set up a round table experience? We call it this inclusive experience. We want everybody to participate, but man, is that hard. It is so hard to make sure that everybody feels welcomed into that particular conversation. And so we spend a lot of cycles internally trying to figure out how do we make sure it's an inclusive environment, right? For everybody to feel free to contribute, whether you're in person or on the phone. And that's not a technology enabler. That's a change management process enabler. And that's why technology alone doesn't work without a strategic plan on what to implement at what point in time and how to do that in the most efficient way. But then this change management framework, right, of how do I think about leveraging that technology and how do I teach people how to optimize the use of that technology to make sure it's inclusive and everybody feels welcomed. Couple of examples there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. And I'm going to bow out. So thanks, Ro. I'll be back online. We're about to do a global broadcast using the old Skype broadcast, and we'll soon be transitioning to Teams.
You got it. You can do it.
That's
I was actually funny story about that, by the way. I was actually looking at one of my PCs the other day, needed to do a Windows update, and I saw Skype was still on there. And I was like, wow, I remember that product. What a great product. It still stands up, but we do have Skype for Teams migration scenarios out there for you, and partners like Synergy who can help.
So we have about 1 minute left. it looks like we don't have any more questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and copy in the meeting links for the next series of meetings. One big question so David, you may not be seeing the chat that's going on along the side because you're presenting, but everybody wants to know what's on your Zoom playlist.
Okay. All right. You're not allowed to judge me. Okay. First, let me just make that clear. Okay. The first song, when I turn on my, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. Like, wait, can we turn off the recording yet? All right. The first song on my playlist was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Do you remember Mark Wahlberg used to be an artist? Do you remember this? Like, I totally forgot this. I was watching The Shooter like about 3 months ago, and I was like, man, I really like Mark Wahlberg. He's sharp. He's a great, what a career this man has had. He was a former, musician, apparently. So that was the first song. The second song was 3 songs in a row by Garth Brooks. I'm not a country guy, but I mean, Rivers, Garth Brooks, I got friends. I mean, those are good tracks. And then right after that was an R&B band by the name of Belle Biv DeVoe. I mean, Ricky Bobby, I can remember listening to that when I was a kid. And so I think that this mix I had put together was a little bit of a throwback mix to a certain extent. And yeah, that's all I'm going to share. I'll probably do a blog entry on this on my LinkedIn and probably walk through my reaction to the songs because it's hilarious. I mean, I haven't listened to this thing in a long time and pulled it out several months ago, and here we go. So
awesome. Well, thank you. We really appreciate your time, and thank you I know you're up already, but thank you for coming in, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the next sessions.
Have a great, productive day. Learn lots, and obviously reach out to me or Ro if you have any sort of questions or concerns. We're here to help, and anything we can do to help you in this unprecedented time, right, with the virus. Ro, speak on behalf of both Synergy and Microsoft. We are here. We're invested. We're going to be there along the way and help make sure that you take this opportunity and don't look at it as a challenge, but really discover the opportunities that you can help grow your business and your connectivity to your customers as an opportunity to drive business forward. So thank you again. Have a great day. I'll be dialing in and out to these sessions. Thanks again to my team for all their help today.
Thank you.